Welcome back for another episode of The Voice of Generation Climate, The Voice of Gen Z. Today we have with us Ganesh Shankar. Ganesh is a true legend in the climate and sustainability space. He's the founder of FluxGen, a water intelligence company, and also the first founder of the Sustainability Mafia, which is a not-for-profit foundation around India, building an ecosystem for climate action and sustainability solutions. And that's two intros, but there's more. We will get to within the story that unfolds going forward. Ganesh, what a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Anirudh. As I said before, I was waiting for to be on this podcast. I mean, I enjoy your podcast. I was telling you how I enjoyed the various previous other podcasts and how much I've learned. So super excited to be on this, and thank you so much for having me.
Anytime, man, anytime. I think you've been a huge influence for a lot of the people at Climes by being a true sustainability champion. And there's this line that you've had from day one, which is, even before I got into the space, which is make sustainability the default choice for humanity. Why? Like, where did that come from? Let's unpack that sentence, right? Like, why do you believe it so fundamentally?
So the sentence by itself took its own time, but I'll tell you a bit of the background about my own journey on how I got into this space. It actually goes back almost 30 years or 29 years. So I still remember, like, only day I used to spend time with my father was Sunday. I mean, he huge workaholic. So Sunday at least he used to give me full time. So we used to go to this lake, Madiwala. And we used to actually spend a lot of time around that lake. He used to take me, he used to tell me a lot of stories. And I used to watch a lot of ducks and birds around, migratory birds. But one fine day, they actually told this lake is going to be converted into a locality, like one of those residential colony where people will actually reside. I was heartbroken because that lake meant so much to me, right? So fortunately, the residents around the lake decided to fight against the authority. They even roped in the forest officials, Karnataka Forest Department, and they did a proper activism against the urban folks, urban authorities, right? So they also included a painting competition in that thing to include everybody as part of this whole fight against closing the lake. I participated in that painting competition, and they asked, what is your imagination of the lake? I did the painting of how I want this lake to be and how it has to be preserved and what else could be done. So fortunately I won the prize, and we also were able to protect the lake. It so happened that they gave an environmental encyclopedia as a prize. I had no clue about environment much. I was just loved that lake, but I started reading. I used to not read much in my childhood, but when you win something, you start you possess it, right? So whether it is ozone layer depleting or greenhouse gas emission, air pollution, water pollution, were all different chapters in this encyclopedia. That actually had a huge impact on how I started thinking about the world, and I also used to discuss with my sister about these things. She's 4 years older to me, and she would understand science better than I do, and that changed my life to a large extent. So after that, we never took any environmentally degradation related decision. Became very environmental friendly on that. So from then to now, I still don't have a driving license. I have environmental compliance at my home. Like, we have to really fight to get something at home. Like, all furnitures are second hand, third hand, and fourth hand. The poor boy, my son, had to get second hand or third hand toys as well. So yeah, I've been a bit of on the other extreme. But what I felt is that, see, it is important, right? While it might look like I'm a eco-Nazi or something like that, but when you know this, it's a very depressing career to be in. Like, you know all the truth, right? So you don't feel like doing something against the environment. And I mean, of course, I'm glad that we have Sustainability Mafia, that we are having an alternative to every non-sustainable thing. But back in those days, or even now, to that, we didn't have. So as I moved forward, I took up a career in technology. I worked with ISRO. Yeah, we both worked in aerospace, right? I worked in ISRO, and then worked in a startup, software engineering, and worked in GE Aerospace. I had experience in antennas and quantum computers and other things, but there's no meaning to all those things without the right purpose. So I decided to quit my job, and that's when I actually wrote this in my resignation letter to GA Aerospace, that I want to I love the company and all those things, but I want to resign this job to focus on build eco-friendly engineering solution for our country people in a small way as an entrepreneur. So that's how I initially was my thing. Rest 40 years of my life I'm alive, I would work on this line that I mentioned in my resignation. But as I started thinking of it, I kind of converted that whole line of building eco-friendly engineering solution as making sustainability the default choice. As I started having a lot of conversation with a lot of people. So that's how it eventually led to that sentence. Yeah.
What a lovely backstory. And I think in that, there are so many different chapters that have happened. You've been an educator, you've been a company builder, not one company, but very many. You have been an individual practitioner of sustainable practices, right? Like not owning a car and cycling everywhere, and like that, so many more. What is the most? You've been a storyteller too, right? You're really good at going and sharing the story and motivating people to also take the plunge into a climate career or adopting more sustainable practices. Which of them have you found the most effective lever? So through the companies you've built, through the classes you've taught, through being an individual practitioner of sustainable behavior, more sustainable behavior, which one is it?
So, to be honest, for me, being associated to the purpose is the most important. So, for me, being a sustainability practitioner gives me real, I don't know, I mean, kind of feel that I'm still not just gone into that side of just thinking of making money as a major thing. Of course, we all have to pay our bills and we have to have our own reasons to make money. But being a sustainability practitioner, but actually, to be honest, now I feel building the community along with you guys, Sustainability Mafia, is slowly becoming a much bigger leverage in terms of this purpose. Because see, I mean, it's not possible you can change every individual towards climate action. But what if you actually build solution that is going to help make sure that you don't affect the environment, right? So, and I, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, I can do only so much, right? And truly, honestly, I know that it's only limited, considering the magnitude of crisis that we are seeing. So that way, I think the community is something that I feel a lot more associated after and individually practicing it at whatever level. I still believe there's so much scope for me to change my behavioral aspect. I'm not fully convinced that I'm living a climate neutral life, and it is also not possible, but I know there is still significant scope for it.
That's incredible. The power of community, I think, is just tremendous. It has so much potential. And I think we can all agree now that this is not a single person's job to do, right? This is not a zero-sum game where, like, if I win, you lose. It actually needs all hands on deck. It needs all of us to play our part as an individual, as a policymaker, as a student, as a corporate, right? Everybody has a part to play. And I think in that, the community angle is so powerful. A community of people who collectively get together and, contribute. And I think it's something Jarnell and MacArthur had told us 3 years ago, which is build something small enough to do, but big enough to matter. Right? And putting those different pieces together in different types of individuals. This is making sustainability a default choice. Doing something that's small enough to do, big enough to matter. Like all of those pieces coming together, right? Paint a picture of it. How has that kind of evolved? How did you decide to really dive so deeply into community building?
It's funny, actually. Ranjita and myself were planning to have a baby in 2018 or so. And being in this field, I got into an argument with somebody about all this climate and how we are building a very, I mean, there was, of course, Greta had already started the activism, and it makes no sense to bring another baby on this earth if you're not securing its future. So I just wrote a blog post, right? I mean, saying that we need a green mafia. Where is the sustainability mafia? And why are we working in silos while the unsustainability guys are anyway mafia? So I still remember it was just a outrage or a kind of a blog post. I still remember Arjun writing that, responding to that blog post, writing back, "I want to be part of the mafia," and it's like that. So many places people started, and it was pretty serendipitous that way. I really didn't have an idea that we had to build a community. Absolutely not. It was just that it came out with that anchor or whatever you call, and we wrote, and then we started meeting up, right? And then we said, oh yeah, this makes sense, right? Especially one of the event in April 2009, Arjun also had come down to Bangalore for something else, and we did a meetup, and that's when we thought, okay, yeah, I mean, this is something everybody cares about, right? I mean, to be honest, my work was very simple, just that I had already connected to a lot of people in India. I mean, of course, Arjun spent most of his career outside India before coming back and starting smart jobs. So it just got all the people network in this, but I think I really think what you did was the most important thing. You brought structure to it. And I mean, I was so happy when Arjun introduced me to you, right? Saying that, hey, this is Anirudh, and you told me your story, right? About how you were trying to find sustainability equivalent to everything that you were practicing, and then you were very adamant that you want to change the waste management of home, energy consumption at home. I was like, wow, I mean, this guy actually is practicing. I was doing it from a very individual behavioral thing, but the real thing was actually adopting sustainable solution. I mean, so that, I think, after the way you build the whole structure to it, the value system, the trust, the quality, so I think you are the biggest movers and shakers of sustainability mafia. And Arjun and myself, you know it, right? I mean, we were not even attending some of the meetings that you were looking for. So I wouldn't claim that most of the credit should go to you for building the community. You build that value and the real what is it today, right? Whether it is getting the TEDx license, and then eventually getting the really amazing people to the community, the kind of weekly meetings that you arrange with us, and you reached out to almost like 250 to 300 entrepreneurs in first 6 months itself. So that was phenomenal. And I think that, I believe, is the true work of community. What we did was very frugal. Arjun and myself, whatever we had done earlier was very frugal and was not really structured. It really didn't have any hope, if you ask me. So I would say, and of course, we got.
Of course. You're being too humble. You're being too humble. So, okay, 3.5 years in though, now, right? SAS Mafia is going strong, hopefully stronger, but we've only just gotten started. How do you see it evolving from here? What is the role of that community in our climate fight? And what can we do with that as a community that an individual just cannot?
Yeah, see, while I may have come up with the vision to make sustainability the default choice, Arjun was the one who came up with the mission statement, right? Which was to multiply the impact of sustainability leaders through goal-oriented collaboration. I think that is a true essence. Like, whether we make sustainability the default choice in next 5 years, 10 years, God knows, we don't know. But at least the mission statement is concrete, right? So I think what is that we can do to enable leaders in sustainability to actually achieve their impact targets, financial targets, their growth targets in whatever metrics, is that extra capital that they never have to raise from an investor or whatever source of money, is, I think, what I believe would be the role of Sustainability Mafia. Right now, of course, we have super focused and will be super focused on entrepreneurs who are building solutions which are sustainable and alternatives to regular sun, right? So that way, the shirt that I'll wear in the future, the chair that I use in the future, the water, the ceiling fan, everything I would know is climate neutral in the future. So I think that is the crux of everything, how we are impacting. I sometimes think like even emotional support that we give to our founders. Like I was at Arjun's place the other day. I was just telling, I feel sometimes that I'm not a great founder. I'm not a great CEO. I should be doing a lot more. And then he told the same thing. And then we started talking about it. That emotional connect probably is so much more important. So I don't think there is one silver bullet on multiplying the impact, right? There is array. So that's where we have the brightest program managers that we get to actually work with us. We
over
have
and through. Over and through.
Saksham, Ahan, and of course I think fact that today we were fortunate to get Priya, right? I think was a game changer for us because we were all thinking like an entrepreneur only, right? I mean, whatever investment we may have done is not out of any thesis or anything. It's just we love some companies, we just. But Priya actually brings in that perspective as a investor and very calm person, and has a. I mean, I just learn by just observing you guys, right? So I think that is the kind of thing that we have to expand to the community at large. So that's what I was telling Saksham the other day. When I sit in this 1 hour meeting, I know how Anirudh looks at a problem. I know how Arjun looks at a problem, how Priya looks at a problem. And each of them give a different perspective to this problem statement. And many times I think I don't even think that way. And it helps me leverage. I get that leverage as an entrepreneur to take decision with that lens. I think that as a something like that, how we can scale to all our entrepreneurs. There's a collective learning. I mean, I learned a lot of things. I just observing Arjun how he does business in my early stage of career, just focusing on one sector. Like he's focused on a hospital and how he cracked it. So for me, I think that leverage, just like how I got as an entrepreneur, if we can give it to all our entrepreneurs, all our community members, the givers of our community members, I think is like my take on the future of sustaining mafia.
Amazing. Let's segue a little bit more deeply into the specific depth vertical you've chosen, which is water. Right. So within the climate sustainability challenge, there's carbon, water, waste, air pollution. Right. There's so many problems to deal with, but we got to pick which one we go very deeply into to solve. At Climes, of course, it's carbon. For you, it's water. Right. What about water? What about the water challenge attracted you to it? Let's start from the origin story and tell us about how you've gotten to FluxGen and the massive vision you have to save 1 billion liters of water and beyond. Let's start right at the origin.
So, see, I am one of the entrepreneurs who didn't have a business plan when I left my job in GE, and I just came with an open mind. So, I initially started a projects and consulting company in renewable energy. I wouldn't even call climate, right? I mean, I was just looking at eco-friendly. So, fortunately, our first customer was the Devecha Center for Climate Change at the Indian Trust, like my alma mater. So I was working with some of the scientists, Professor J. Srinivasan. He was the IPCC 4 lead author, which is the Nobel Prize winning that group, right? So I used to always learn from the conversation in him and various other things. So my initial, of course, focus was solar, and mitigation is what I thought is the most important thing. Like we should put all our energy into mitigation alone, right? And and we were using sensors and other tech. So I'm a tech guy, so I was just trying to use all kinds of tech to solve a problem. So I still remember I had gone to Acme, which is a solar utility scale solar farm company, and I had pitched to them about how we could put an IoT into all their string combiner boards or even to their solar panels. The chief technology officer of Acme told me, Ganesh, I can do it at a 1/15th price, 1/15th cost by just flying a drone from this German company for what you are going to achieve by just putting these sensors. And I went to him and saying that, sir, can you tell me what do you mean by that? How do you do that? And then I came to know that there is something called aerial thermal and drone imaging that we could do. So we started doing that as a projects and consulting company itself. I was not really looking at any new product company. So, and he actually opened up doors, and then I consulted a very good friend of mine who had done PhD in solar from IIT Bombay, Mehul, and he actually told me the nuts and bolts of how and the fact that I had from aerospace background. Fortunately, one of my nephew, eldest of all cousins' son, he was looking at startup and gig in this, and I tried. I told him not to get into this. This is a very messy world. You'll only suffer. But he was very, very adamant. And then he had himself worked on drones in his college days. And one of my existing colleague, Kaustubh Kanataki, he was with me for nearly 3.5, 4 years, and both of them were looking at entrepreneurship. And we spun it off as a new company, right? And of course, I may have started that company with 90% equity, and all those things is different. But what was important to me was mitigation was very important. But these two boys did everything to take this company to the next level. I realized I was not even doing much at all after some time, right? And they took this company, and we decided to spin it off the new entity. And of course, we had already registered a new company, but we decided to give this problem statement to that company. And while 14W was looking for. So while doing this, I was constantly concerned that the mitigation is not happening at the pace it should be happening. And while talking to Professor Srinivasan, he was always used to tell me like climate change will impact water the most. So then I learned a bit about it, and what I figured out was that water is not just a adaptation issue; it's also about mitigation. I was just last week. I was in Ahmedabad. The municipal corporation head said 80% of their energy for the municipal corporation goes into water. Energy spent in water, moving and treating. So, so it was a perfect mix to understand that if you are looking at solving in climate, water is going to play a very important role. One, of course, adaptation was my major focus. I was looking at how adaptation. I mean, because we are in a warmer planet, it's not that we are going to be in a warmer planet in the future. You're already in a warmer planet. There is already. I mean, you're in Delhi right now, right? I mean, the situation, you know it, right? And so there's a. I was told Maharashtra had like. 3 months of rainfall came in 5 days. So it was very clear that I wanted to work on water intelligence. Like since my background is tech, so I don't have a back. I mean, I have great respect for nature-based solution guys, right? I would, if I had come from environmental engineering or civil engineering background, probably I would have jumped into those nature-based solutions. So since my background was tech, I wanted to use my leverage point as using tech. So decided to work on that because we had already done one project on water while for Titan Jewelry Division as a projects and consulting company. So that project was a clear indication what we could do for long. So in a way, this organization was in a water stress area, and they were consuming significant amount of water, and they wanted to become water positive by 2025. So they wanted somebody to give a digital solution to identify inefficiencies in water network. And then we, of course, we were supposed to complete that project in 3 months. We took 9 months to do it. In way, we also built a product by doing that project. We are always thankful to Titan Jewelry Division. If we are today, I'm even talking to you on this podcast, it's because of them. So what we solved in identifying inefficiency and reduce water wastage by up to, I think in their case, 22%. We decided that we would do the same for thousands of other industries who would also need this. That way, when they reduce their water consumption and they're able to identify risk associated to water, they will actually be able to mitigate financial risk, business continuity risk, and compliance and reputational risk. So what I mean to say is that we digitize water infrastructure, whether it is using IoT and identifying put up flow level and various other sensor, energy sensor, water quality in the entire infrastructure, and give insights onto our cloud dashboard, web and mobile application, which help in getting prescriptive alerts to take corrective action. What would take days, weeks, months together to fix, they would be able to fix it in less than 20 minutes. So the water that they save is the energy that they save as well. The energy that within the fence in chiller, boiler, and various other energy intensive, and also the water which would have come from far off distance. In Bangalore, you get it from River Kalaari. So that way, there's a carbon emission reduction as well as water conservation and ensuring they have enough water. So that way, they can plan their water in ahead of time. And at the same time, compliance, whether it is business responsibility, sustainability reporting, where today they're expected to report how much water was required to make a rupee of revenue, right? So in all angles, I think the time was, I mean, I was a little ahead of time, but thanks to Professor Srinivasan and others who actually told me this is going to become big. We were a little early in game, but glad that we didn't burn out before we closed it. So today we have more than 100 plus clients, the Tata Steel, Vedanta, and others. Also, now working with government as well through Amrut 2.0 and large.
That's a lot of impact achieved, because if you're getting demand for your solution and it's taken, but it's not come overnight, it's happened over the years, right? And now you have some of the who's who enterprise wise who are your customers. That's amazing. That's such a great signal that Indian enterprises do care. And again, it goes back to the earlier line. If you make sustainability the default choice, not just for sustainability's sake, but for all the co-benefits that come with it, right? It's more affordable. It's great for the planet. It's the right thing to do, right? All of those packaged into one neat solution. Why won't they do it?
I believe that it is sustainability is a business imperative right now, right? I mean, if you are able to reduce your electricity consumption, if you are able to reduce your water consumption, if you are able to actually use eco-friendly material and not degrade your environment and make sure that you are, I mean, if you are in a community where you're degrading, these are the people who work with you, right? They come to your company and their health hazard can be because you're not environmentally compliant. Like if you know the movie Erin Brockovich, and so right, how hexavalent chromium was such a big, so it affects everything. So it is a business imperative. It affects the business right away. So it is no more like good to do. It is, I mean you and I believe that's what we are here for, but I think slowly it is becoming a business imperative.
100% is. It's the only way to be in the marketplace. It's, I think, business imperative. It's a license to be in the marketplace, and companies that don't adopt a sustainability, framework and start adopting solutions, I don't think will exist in the future in the market, and that's a very good thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you one example. Right, there is this CEO of a very major textile company who makes kidswear. He has office manufacturing in Tirupur, Sri Lanka, and various other places in Europe. So I asked him, so how long you been in textile and what do you think about it? He told, I'm not in the field of textile anymore. I'm in the field of water. I was like, what? So he said, Ganesh, the traditional way of doing textile and this apparel is not going to work. So how I manage water is going to tell me whether I can be in this business, because it has so much of the pollution that caused because of not treating the water, right? I mean, they technically can be he said there was some time where Tirupur, many industries were shut down because of this region. There is a river which actually was totally contaminated. So today, actually, people are saying that they're trying. I mean, they're trying to find out an alternative to even exist. So everybody is going to that pivot on how to do what they have been doing for tens or hundreds of years in a way that is. And also, you consider the millennials and the Gen Z. The huge wealth has been inherited today, and they care about it. They have children who actually they care about. So they are taking choices, right? That it is. After some level, they realize it is not just only about the moral responsibility. Their business also will get affected. They will be peak of their career when they are in their 50s or something like that. At that time, if this is what matters, they don't want to get screwed up. Right? I realize these 40. I have been told 46% of millennials and Gen Zs have inherited huge wealth, or that's a proportion with which they have inherited. So I think the pivot is going to happen either way. So what I'm trying to say is there are multiple ways this is actually the transition is happening. This sustainability transition, right? I mean, the millennials who are inheriting wealth.
That's such a good point. We've not thought about it enough. It's actually the single biggest wealth transfer in history, in human history, that's happening right now, like in the next 7 to 10 years. From people who were born in the 40s, 50s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, to their children, now, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and it's getting passed on to their children now in their late 20s, 30s, 40s. Single biggest wealth transfer, and that generation is, we call generation climate, which is the people who are passing on wealth who care for climate, and even the ones who are getting the wealth who care for climate. They're actually going to, the first framework that they're using to make consumption choices is sustainability too. Is this product more sustainable than any other alternative out there? So I think like that's such a great lever to look at, which is far more wealth, disposable wealth, which will be available to put into solutions that are just sustainable from the very get-go. Right?
Yeah,
not from an adaptation perspective, but from a mitigation perspective at the source.
See, I think everything should be done towards mitigation. I mean, no question asked. I think there should not be any question about that, right? But what I also mean when this Gen Z and millennials are inheriting wealth, right? I mean, they are going to become leaders, and the prime of their career, they'll be in their 50s or 55, 60, right? At that time, if they are don't have that sustainability moat, they don't have that climate moat, they'll also not be able to grow their business to, the level they want to, right? I mean, think of it. Dhirubhai Ambani did whatever he could, but Mukesh Ambani did a pivot in his business. Right? I think that's the kind of pivot every new gen would be looking at, and they would be looking at climate as that pivot they want to do.
Yeah. Is this why education has been such a big lever for you and such a big personal interest? Because all through your life, you've had a consistent chapter of being an educator. In some form or the other, you've always gone back to being a teacher, right? And in fact, I would love for you to bring up the different chapters of educating different audiences. Education is a lever. Let's unpack that.
So, see, when you're born in a family where there have always been teachers, you get an unfair advantage through your, I don't know whether it's a DNA or blood. I'm not trying to context Lamarck's theory. But so what I'm trying to say is that I've seen my father as a teacher and my sister also as a teacher. So I always loved that profession. There's natural interest to actually be an educator. So in my childhood, I used to run a painting classes because I wanted cricketing gears and all those things. So teaching those would help me make some money and buy all this cricketing pad and other things. Your parents will buy you a cricket bat, not outside that, right? So, and then of course, when I was in college, we used to flunk in electronics lab. So I saw there's a business opportunity actually doing electronics lab tuition. So I ended up doing lab tuition, made quite a good amount of money in college days. And then when I actually was in my master's, I realized there is I wanted some more money for some reason. So I decided to do some classes for computer science related course. I wanted to do this Kashmir trip. I didn't have this money to go to Kashmir. So I decided I'll do some classes and make some money and go to Kashmir. So, but all these things earlier, it was all about I want money for something that I want to do. But when I actually got into this field of purpose-driven thing, I thought I want to combine the purpose. It should not just be about paying bills, right? So fortunately, my alma mater, University of Science, gave me an opportunity to do courses. It was all evening classes, so I decided to do course on industrial IoT. Initially, I had not gained so much of knowledge in sustainability climate, but my knowledge was more on the tech side. So I decided I'll teach courses on industrial IoT, artificial intelligence, and all those tech-related things. Slowly, I decided to do a course on climate, clean tech and agri-tech in that course. So that's when I realized that doing this course also had a fringe benefit. All my students wanted to work with me. So, like for example, this course in ISC has given me so many colleagues. Like Airprobe got a bunch of people, Ashish and others joined Airprobe. My chief operating officer of FluxGen was my student. He had taken a course on clean tech and agri-tech. Pramod was my student. So, and I also built an ecosystem of all these people over semester after semester. I made a group. So eventually it became a group that helped me out.
Yeah.
So in a way, I realized that teaching is very important integral part of my life, and I enjoy it. I mean, when you enjoy it, you do things absolutely effortlessly. You just don't have to put an effort at all. So, but COVID hit, and then I stopped doing this courses and all those things. And also, when my son was born, I realized I had to put some time as a family. I didn't want to. I want to be a good father above a great teacher. So I decided to stop doing teaching. But there was an itch in me that I'm not doing something I love. I'm glad you guys like the idea of Climate Ninja, where we all actually be able to become educators. We are already entrepreneurs, educators, and we take 10 master classes to all these students from college in their final year or pre-final year, and they would learn from us, and they eventually would do internship in this. So to me, I think this is the perfect arrangement where you teach and you learn and you actually engage and you get talent into the system. So right now, I'm glad that I have the Climate Ninja thing running, which is going to complete that interest in teaching. But I think it is mostly, above all, more than purpose and everything, it is that natural love for that profession.
And the power in converting one mind or influencing one mind to look at a problem a slightly different way, when then empowering that mind with the tools to be able to do something about it, right? You never know like what it can lead to. I think Anshuman, who you also know so well and is such a friend to you, calls these people instigators, right? Or like fire starters. You start a fire somewhere and then they go to a different ecosystem and spread, right? Like wildflowers, not wildfire, like wildflowers. So taking 10-15 people, influencing or educating with tools and the knowledge that they didn't have previously about sustainability, and then they go and have, so many of them have created their own ecosystems, right? You brought up the example of your nephew, Aditya, who is now a successful founder,
Yeah.
right? Together, both of you have had the rare distinction of even having an exit from a climate tech company, which is just like amazing. So I think the power of instigators and the power of fire starters using education as a lever for Generation Climate is so strong. What do you think?
Sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I agree with you, right? I mean, many times this universe of knowledge that we don't know is much bigger than the knowledge that we have, or things that we know that we don't know. Things that we don't know that we don't know is the biggest unknown, right? So I think that's what a teacher can do, and a teacher who is an entrepreneur can actually do it even, in my opinion, better, right? And I think that's what I like about it. And yes, you're right. Like, it is you're sowing a seed which can actually become something. So to me, actually, there's a personal career mission. I want to help 40 young minds become the future leaders.
Yeah.
That is my personal mission. I believe that if I'm able to hit that 40 before I die, and these guys, I mean, like, I can safely say I may have ticked the 2 tick mark of Aditya and Kaustubh Karnataki. Like that, if I'm able to get another in my lifetime, and I feel that can have a big impact, potentially a big impact on solving climate and sustainability issue.
That's really cool. And I think we all have stuff that we have learned from you and are still learning from you in your education. You're always teaching us. I think internally we call you the guru, which is guru of sustainability. Look, we've talked about, your personal sustainability journey, your habits, your companies that you build, because I think building companies as a lever to influence action and change on water, like you're working on, right, is really powerful. Your work in community building, extremely powerful. In being an educator, extremely powerful. But what about policy? I think that's the last section I really want to go deep on with you. You've never really gone deep yet in the policy space. But what do you think the role of policy in enabling sustainability to be a default choice is? And how do you want that to materialize going into the future?
I really like what Anshuman told us in our SES talk. Right, you remember we had invited maybe one of the 25th or one of those talk, and he himself had told me how he was working for a political system early in his life, and he actually mentioned something very powerful during that talk, that it is very important that if we neglect this area, we are screwed. So I totally agree. I think something that he said was very valuable, and I sometimes feel I'm not doing much about it, and I feel bad about it. But I feel all of us, all entrepreneurs, have to in climate space, because we know we are so. I mean, as a venture capital funded, we are always looking at our ARR, MRR, and those as our metric, and sometimes we would not have time to work on. But I think it is very important because we know what it is, what that policy can change, and maybe it is a completely opaque thing for the policymakers, that they don't know this is important to actually have that kind of a steep change in work in climate, right? So I think fortunately I have been able to recently been involved in discussion with Niti Aayog, and recently even with the G20 event that happened, mayoral summit that happened in Ahmedabad. So I'm trying to see how much I can involve, but again I think I'm doing most of it with the lens of my business. So I'm not fully convinced that I'm doing it out of full purpose, that I want to bring about a change from the policy lens. But I do believe that there is it feels bad that I'm trying to postpone my work in policy when I know policy is one of the biggest thing to be worked on. I really think Sasmafia should some way contribute to policy. I think that's something that hopefully the fifth director that we get actually is a policy maker, and that's how I think that person can bridge the gap between climate entrepreneurs and the policymakers, and we are able to fill the gap. And it's an urgent and important thing to do. And I personally feel I've not done much, and I really think
well, you will. But thinking about it, is the first step of it. I think that's definitely a huge lever in society. Having great solutions is part one. Having the capital to keep them going, and well capitalized so that they can hit market is another. Having demand coming in from the right buyers, right? Corporate and individual is really important. But having policymakers who scale up those solutions, make them easier to access, make them more economical, long lasting. I think that's really a really key role. And there, I think the government is definitely starting to make the right moves on electric mobility and biofuels and a few more areas. But there's so much more that can be done, right? And a lot of our creative energy, I really hope and wish, starts going into that direction too. So that we can enable far more demand than what exists today. You have 100 enterprise customers today, it can be 10,000, right? With great policy. And
no,
then
absolutely. I think
it does become default choice if that happens.
Yeah, I just want to mention that one of the good things I am really appreciative of the government was the Amrut 2.0 from the water perspective. So government decided to fund or rather do this initiative called pitch pilot scale, where they would help all water entrepreneurs in the country pitch, and they do a pilot. They would give something like 20 lakh grant to do a pilot, and they want to scale these solution across the country. They took 75 startups to actually fund them. I think that is one of the most incredible startup initiative that Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs took at. I think what they have done with Amrut should be replicated in all aspects of sustainability. I think if it is done, it's already showing up results, right? Amrut is helping in solving water crisis through whether it is EcoSTP, which is doing great work in treatment of water. There's a company, VGod is doing in the residential water management space. Boson from this one, Vikas is doing on the tertiary treatment. So all of us are actually getting a chance to work with government and fully paid pilot. And such initiative, if it is replicated in all aspects of climate change sustainability, I think a lot can happen. I'm definitely, I think, very hopeful of such initiatives.
And I'm sure we will make it happen. With you leading the charge, we definitely will. So on my closing note with you, let's fast forward 7 years, 2030. We talk about 2030 a lot. I think it's a close enough milestone. It's an urgent enough milestone. It's when a lot of things kind of go into an irreversible territory if we haven't solved them by then. But it's also long enough time frame to make a significant difference, right? So 7 years from now, you're looking back. What have you achieved that makes you proud?
What I would feel very proud is when I'm actually, I get up in the morning, when I actually brush my teeth, I see a toothpaste which says it is water neutral or water completely water. There's no water that is required to make the paste, or it is replenished in such a way that it's a water positive toothpaste that I'm pasting. And whether I'm taking any car from my home to office, I would definitely like to go by car. But when if it is actually carbon neutral or like the water, this one. So in all aspect of that, I actually consume on my daily basis, and if FluxGen has actually played a very important role in making those water positive, I would feel so good. I think I would feel less guilty of buying the shirt, or less guilty of buying this laptop. Anything that I buy, I would know this is carbon neutral and water neutral, or hopefully water positive. So that is something that I would feel very proud if. And of course, it's just not me. I wish anybody who gets up in the morning and till they sleep, everything that they consume is water positive. That is my ultimate hope and goal as well in some way. But yeah, I think I'm a very optimist guy. I don't like the doomsday prediction. I don't like that whole saying that the world is going to get into this mess and all this thing. I think I'm very optimistic that way, and I think together we all can solve it, and it is possible. And I'm very glad. I'm a big fan of Climes, and I like the work that you guys are doing, and I think I also that I've subscribed to your monthly thing, because I really see it cannot be solved. There's no silver bullet, and I really like the fact that you're financing so many, and I would also hope clients would finance water projects also. That's another 2030 goal. So I really that's my optimism, that's my hope, that's my goal as well.
I think optimism is what gets us to a cleaner, safer, fairer, better future. It all begins with optimism. If we gave up, we'd have no hope. So optimism is the root, the first principle of it. And I think that vision of making sustainability the default choice with Sus Mafia and making everything water positive with FluxGen, what a powerful combination that is. And I'm sure that by 2030, when we look back, we will proudly, state how far we've come. Because even I believe we have a shot at a cleaner, safer, fairer, better future for everybody. We have to. We have no choice.
Yeah, I also want to get an air license so that when I fly, I would feel it's a carbon neutral flight. So I don't think behavioral choice is the way only. It's important right now in this transition, but ideally people should enjoy their life and have all that, and that's possible when we actually work towards building a carbon neutral or a water positive world.
Amazing. What a great way to end this. Ganesh, thank you so much for being with the voice of Generation Climate with Climes today. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you and learn from you.
So thank you so much, Anirudh. I really enjoyed it.